Welcome to week 9 of Design 320. Through the first 8 weeks, we focused on actual modeling skills in SketchUp and Revit. And at this point, you've got the skills to start applying them into the first phases of design. So that's what we're going to focus on for the rest of the semester. And this week we're going to do week 1 of 2 of your first, we call it an individualized project or customized project, and it's our first one, and this has to do with some aspects of tiny house design. Now I'll let you know, we chose this. We do something different every semester. Last semester in the fall, the Design Hub began working on a foster youth support project to help site owners, people who own some property who wanted to do something to help foster youth who were emancipating from the system. And we found out a lot about it. We found out that it's a very difficult transition. There's lots of roadblocks to it. And one of the roadblocks is the housing situation in California. And so this particular client of the Design Hub is looking to put a small group of tiny houses on their project and on their property. And so we've been going over some specifics, and it's not as easy as you might think, but also it's not as hard. So that's what we're going to focus on. Your design is going to be focused around tiny house for foster youth. And so we have a lot of backup information for you to review. When you do a design, having the background information and knowing a lot about it makes the design easier. You're more likely to include items and things that make your design more desirable for the end user. So we're going to give you a little bit of that. Now you can totally do this work without knowing anything about tiny houses or foster youth or fair housing or any of those topics, but it's well worthwhile for you to start learning how to do that background work to become knowledgeable in the field. The more knowledgeable you are, the faster you work, the more applicable your work is, and the more likely it is that the client will accept it. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now, this is going to be the very first part of the design process. It's the mass modeling, where we will be doing something called design review. Very, very few people get taught design review. Our program is one of the few places that does that. So you're going to be taught very specific methods for doing design reviews that will make you a much, much more desirable employee as you're looking for work. So the goal of this is more to learn how to do a design review than it is about doing a really cool model. Our models for this week will be very, very simplistic, and they'll become sort of like the canvas or the backdrop that we can start recording our design ideas. And you've been practicing that a little bit, but this week we're going to focus you on that a little bit more clearly. So this is a very, very important part of the design process. It's probably the hardest part. It's not too hard to teach you how to create models and do good work in your modeling. I've already seen in 8 weeks, everybody in this class has become good at creating models. You're very, very accomplished already, both in SketchUp and in Revit. And so it's time to start applying it. So that's where we're at. This week there is a playlist, and I'll put this lecture into this playlist. but most of it is on the activity guide also. There's an assignment guide, which I've got right here to show you. And there's an overview. Here's the goals for the assignment guide this week. It's to perform the first steps of a common design process. Now, the design process is pretty loosey-goosey. It's not do this, 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 this. This can be really hard for some students to get the idea that I'm not going to tell you exactly what buttons to click, exactly what you're supposed to think, and exactly what you're supposed to produce. I'm going to lead you to a format and a way of doing it, and I'll expect you to give it a try. And if it comes out that I have some feedback and need to give you some stuff, that will not degrade your effort, and it won't lower your grade. Not doing the work degrades your effort and lowers the grade. So I'm really most interested that you're starting to work the process and understand it. And so that process starts with some research, and there's design requirements. It's really important to know about existing designs. And so you may choose to work in an area where you're already comfortable and where you know a lot. Or you might want to try to get out of that zone and start researching new stuff. The more you already know, the faster and easier the research happens. Okay? And it should influence your own design. Now, here's the cool thing about design. Often, a design will already exist, but you're going to use it in some new instance or some new way or some new place with new criteria. And so you might even use a totally existing design. But in our job in this one is to, if you do use an existing design, is to find one thing that you can change about it. Then you're going to review the existing products against some very specific design review criteria. This is different than I like it, I don't like it, that's good, that's bad. There's some very specific things that you'll look at and you'll do a comparison. This meets it. It meets it well. It doesn't meet it. It kind of meets it. And by putting all those criteria together, you'll get a good idea of the strength of the design. Then you'll create a mass model for your own design review. And here's an example. So here's an existing design. It's part of another cool design that looks like this. It's a bed that goes up and down in a tiny house in case you want to get some stuff and work down below. But there's some things that I thought should be maybe improved upon. So I did some work to show how that could be done. And it's very rough. You can see it's some cylinders. It's an existing model with a few little pieces put on it. And then I'll be able to talk about it. I'll be able to come in here and talk about my improvements to the existing design, and I'll compare them against existing criteria. And I step you through all of that. Okay, so that's this stuff. We also have a discussion. One of the things that came out of our review of the foster youth thing is that this problem that we're addressing, housing insecurity for foster youth, applies to far more people than foster youth. And when somebody says they're couch surfing, that's a euphemism that they need shelter. And Sacramento has a vastly growing population of surfers. Now, that's not everybody who's just living in a tent or a camper or a car. There's a large population of what we would call couch surfers. And there's been a lot of work on this and a lot of money spent. And the problem is only getting worse. And so it's worth it to be thinking about, even though it might not have anything to do with your specific knick-knack or thing that you're going to design, it's good to think about these things and give us your thoughts. So there is no right or wrong here. Just know that this is a sensitive topic and that you should be thoughtful and base it either on things that you know to be true and can provide evidence for. And that could be known from research or things that you've seen and read and actually know, or that you got that maybe you have some uh, experience in. Some of the best information about the foster youth project came from former foster youth that were on our project from the design tech group that could really give us good information and gave us good leads to look at. So you may have some specific information about this. So this is just it doesn't have to do with modeling or anything, but it does have to do with being a professional and knowing how your work is used and what it gets used on. And then, of course, you're going to turn your stuff in. So that is our week number 9. Next week, we will increase the complexity of our design based on the design review, and you will have an opportunity to review not just your own design, but another person's design to help them strengthen the design. So that's it for week 9, and I look forward to seeing the cool work from your design reviews.